Hello everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about the project which I have been implementing the closest pair problem. We'll talk through the Python line by line. I have explained. I used here two different algorithms. One is brute force algorithm and one is divide and conquer algorithm. Brute force algorithm is used to find the closest points in the small data set. So let's start with the brute force algorithm. The function implementing this algorithm is named brute force closest points. At the start of this function, we initialize the minimum distance to infinity and the closest pair to the null. This sets up the variables we'll need to keep track of the closest pair of points. Next, we'll have two nested loops that iterate over all pairs of points. For each pair, we calculate the distance between the points. If the distance is the less than the current minimum distance, we update the closest pair. This process continues until we have checked all possible pairs of points. The time complexity of this algorithm is O of n square, where due to nested loops where n is the number of points. Next, let's look the divide and conquer algorithm. This problem approach is a bit more complicated but more efficient. The function implementing the algorithm is named as a divide and conquer closest pair. This function begins by handling the base case. If there are three or fewer points, it simply calls the brute force algorithm to find the closest pair. For larger sets of points, the function finds the first sorts the points by their x coordinates and recursively calls itself the point. The effective divides the problem into smaller problems. Let's run this thing. Once we have the closest pairs from the left to right halves, we need to consider the case where the closest pair of points straggles the dividing line. To do this, we find the smaller of the two distances and form a strip of points within the distance from the middle line. We then check only the points in the strip to see if there is a pair that's closer together than our current closest pair. Finally, the function returns the closest pair of points. The time complexity of this algorithm is O of n log n. And now let's see the graph. Let's run the graph. So now onto two experiments. We have run experiment brute force and run experiment divide and conquer that run these algorithms with different input sizes and record the running times. Here you can see the empirical running times for both algorithms. As the input size increases, the running of the brute force algorithm increases significantly, while running time of the divide and conquer algorithm increases at the much slower rate. These tables and graph represents the form of our experiments, showing the empirical and predicted running times as well as the calculated constants for both algorithms. So now let's run this graph. So we'll get an output like this. This is brute force and this is the estimated and predicted the values. And that concludes our code. I have this gives a better understanding of how these algorithms work and implement and them in Python. The main difference between the brute force algorithm and divide and conquer algorithm is the brute force algorithm, which deals with the closest, small data sets, which easily finds the distance between the pairs of the points and it gives the time complexity. And whereas the divide and conquer algorithm, it will be helpful when large data sets comes into picture. So this divide and conquer algorithm problem very makes the problem divided and sub problems. So it will be helpful for finding the largest data set and it will be more efficient than the brute force algorithm when it comes to the group of points. So the time complexity of this will be the O of log n. Thank you for listening to me.